Well, now to this. Former President Trump will be severely limited in what he can discuss in his 2020 election case. He's been charged with criminal conspiracy for trying to nullify President Biden's victory in an afternoon hearing. The judge overseeing the case warned Trump that he cannot publicly release files deemed sensitive. She also warned Trump against intimidating witnesses or potential jurors. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden's plea deal has seemingly fallen apart. Attorney General Merrick Garland has assigned a special prosecutor to that case. So joining us now to discuss the cases and their potential impacts on the upcoming presidential race is Paul Lisnek, host of the WGN Political Report. Paul, good to see you.
Yeah, usually it's the week in review. Today it's the day in review. So much happened today.
Yeah,
exactly. A lot to sort through.
Let's discuss the news in Illinois here with the assault weapons ban, a victory for the governor, but this is clearly not over yet. How likely do you think this will be moved all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court with a very conservative makeup on the court?
Yeah, I said on the morning show today when the decision came out that certainly the governor is happy about it. Vice President Harris was here today, so her remarks, I'm sure, were complimentary of the governor and of the state. But the bottom line is this was a state case. It went to the Illinois Supreme Court. Worth noting that the decision was 4-3, and one of the new Democratic justices, Mary Kay O'Brien, actually voted against the assault weapons ban for some technical reasons. But, a lot of people think Pritzker gave her money. She's going to vote the way he wants. She didn't do that. But the bottom line is the court basically said, look, you didn't even argue the Second Amendment of the Constitution in here. You threw it in later, but it's not part of the complaint. So they sort of dismissed that. They went on a bunch of other kinds of grounds, and some technical, some not. But there is a federal case that's going on, and it's the federal case that we don't know yet what's going to happen there. Very little doubt, guys, that it's going to work its way through to the U.S. Supreme Court. Supreme Court, which has ruled, of course, that we have the right to own guns, and then they ruled we have the right to carry guns outside the home. This seems to be the next logical step, which is, and what kind of guns can they be? We'll find out.
All right, special prosecutor elevated by U.S. Attorney Merrick Garland to investigate Hunter Biden when it seemed like it was a done deal, even though many critics said that it was a sweetheart deal. What's happening there?
So a little confusing. He didn't get the title of special prosecutor. He got the title of special counsel, which, by the way, is for all intents and purposes sort of the same thing, just not minor differences. But it's really interesting because David Weiss himself, he's the guy, has said he had the authority to do whatever he wanted to do. I think that Merrick Garland, while he said he just believes it's right to do this, I think there's a lot of pressure from Republicans in Congress to take this step. They kept calling for a special counsel, and that's what I think Merrick Garland kind of gave to that pressure and bent in to do it. The truth is that Weiss doesn't really have any more power now than he did as an attorney general to go after Hunter Biden any more than he wants. So I don't know what after 5 years we're going to hear that we didn't. And even now, it's interesting to hear some of the Republicans in Congress attacking it. He's a sham prosecutor. He's a Trump appointee who, again, Merrick Garland could have appointed a Biden appointee. Everything has stayed in the Trump world for this entire thing. It goes to show just how political this is, on the Republican side, because even though Hunter Biden is in a heap of trouble, the Democrats in the House, the Republicans in the House want to use this to keep trying to pull Joe Biden in. To date, no evidence that that's the case.
And speaking of Trump and his legal
troubles.
So let's talk about this judge today. Kind of gave him some stern warnings. He's going to be campaigning, obviously, but also facing a trial that could potentially start in January.
Yeah.
What did they tell him to be careful of here?
So it's the prosecution that said we'd like to start this on January 2nd. That's not going to happen. Next week, it's the defense will submit their dates. They'll probably ask for January of 2029. And then this judge will rule on the 28th with what the date's going to be. Here's what's really interesting about that. I think we've even talked before. If Trump steps out of line, and he will, right? He can't. He goes to these rallies. He's going to say things he shouldn't talk about. What will the judge do? Is she really going to put him in jail? Is she going to yell at him? Does he care if she yells at him? What is she going to do? And today, I think she tipped her hand. She basically said to his lawyers, you need to know that if this confidential information, protected information, is leaked, that is jeopardizing witness protection, that is jeopardizing all sorts of things here, and this trial date may just move up. That's her secret weapon, which is she might get a trial date tomorrow if he starts talking about that on the stump.
And then, of course, his New York case set for March.
And of course, somebody's got to pull back, right? So these judges have not yet, to our knowledge, talked to each other. They're going to have to. My best guess, and especially given the way Judge Chutkan, who is the D.C. judge, is handling this, is I think she wants to go first. She's pushing it faster than anybody, and I think the odds are this case, the D.C. case, will go before the others. The New York judge has already said he would step back in deference. And what we're seeing in the Florida case, by the way, is Aileen Cannon. We kind of wondered whether Judge Cannon this time around would be a little less favorable to Trump than she was last time, but already she's raising questions. She leaked the fact that there's another grand jury going on now that's looking for other cases to bring other issues. It's very, very strange because she's a former prosecutor. She should have known that there's nothing wrong with having that grand jury. It's not supposed to be disclosed. So it looks like either she's competent would not be the best word to describe her right now, or she's making decisions again in the world of the Trump campaign.
Enjoyed your interview with ex-mayor Lori Lightfoot
Thank you.
last
It was a fun
weekend.
Yeah.
Tony Preckwinkle this weekend.
Yeah, so not over drinks, though. So Tony Preckwinkle, we're going to talk here, but we're going to find out what she thinks of the former mayor, even of Rahm Emanuel, how she's working with Brandon Johnson, how it is that there's a big deficit that they're dealing with. At the same time, she promises no new taxes and no new fees. Also joining me, Professor Eric Nesbitt of Northwestern. We're going to talk about this Trump rhetoric, not the legal stuff, but the political impact. What all these things Trump is saying on the stump, how does it impact the political case? Really interesting, and we'll talk about all that. Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, I'll call and wake you up.
Looking forward to it, Paul.
Got
Thanks
it.
so much.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.